Hello everyone, welcome to Chaosville Bedmon episode 25. It's been a bit of a while. I'm afraid I don't really have much of an explanation for you there, except that more or less the same issues I described in episode 24 still exist, and I do have a slight update on Elemental. I don't know if I shared this elsewhere yet. Elemental was posted back to Aria in Manchester to undergo some testing. His motherboard only, thankfully. The rest of him is still around, so I'm still using his keyboard and stuff. And the last I heard was around Tuesday that he had indeed arrived and was undergoing testing. Beyond that, I don't know. I will absolutely keep you all updated, probably via Twitter as news becomes available. But what you see in the opening here is more or less the most recent footage I've managed to get, where I was checking how well my frames were doing after some testing with various Java versions to see if I'd managed to resolve whatever issue it was that was causing the gigantic memory leak. I didn't quite manage that, but I had it set up anyway. So what you see here is that I basically am at the point now where I have to build a more dedicated area for the bees. No longer can they just be this small little offshoot thing by the side of every center supply depot, because I've gotten to the point now where the next step up involves either a significant power supply or alvearies, and a fair few of them. Alvearies are big 3x4x3 kind of things, which take a lot of resources and power to make, and a lot of like dedicated services to maintain, ideally. So I decided that now was a good time to move along and start building the bee lab. So I found a nice little big island floating just off of the main line, closest, I believe, to the mall. And what you're about to see is a series of screenshots I took over the course of a particularly prolonged play session, just to kind of document my progress, just so you guys have some idea of what I've been up to. Of course, I haven't really done much with the Night of the Living Dead build, because I really want to actually have decent frames and cameras and whatnot going for that. So this is the best I can do right now. Sorry, I really didn't want to do 2 consecutive episodes as a slideshow, and this one is even more of a slideshow than the last one, because I'm kind of sick right now, and I'm kind of dying already. But anyways, this opening footage is just Dexter the Stone Golem shifting things from an under chest into the local Applied Energistics storage. This one is Nerfer instead of Newton over at the mall. Nerfer is named for Emmy Nerfer. I don't know if that's exactly how you pronounce it, but she was a German mathematician who did a lot of great things for maths, although she, being a product of her times, didn't really get to teach properly and whatnot. But next image up is just more or less how the area looked very shortly after I found it. I covered the 2 trees on the island, which I kind of want to preserve for aesthetics, with glass layers so they don't set on fire as easily. And I laid out as just the existing apiaries, including the 4 lightning bees. I'm not sure why I decided to do that. I have needed the redstone, and they've just been setting things on fire willy-nilly. And then I set up the planologistic stuff, and just Dexter and everything went nicely. But then we get to the brunt of the bee lab, as yet unnamed, which is, of course, the alvearies. The alvearies I'm thinking of will have 6 frame housings each. This means that they'll be able to hold a maximum of 6 frames, whereas a standard apiary can only hold 3. You can have more than that in an actual alveary. To the best of my knowledge, 7 or more frame housings doesn't really affect the alveary as much, if at all. So 6 is more or less your golden number as far as I'm aware. But the problem then arises in there's going to be about 18 of these, which means I need to link them together, because I need to get all of their products, like their combs and whatnot. So I can have a ton of pipes, maybe Buildcraft Red Power, that kind of thing, or I can use Mind Factory Reloaded, which I haven't really touched much yet. Or I can use a substantial in scale Applied Energistics network. And the easiest way that I managed to figure out is this method. which is just 2 pipes, one of which is an A-pierced pipe, 2 ender chests, and 2 routers. So it sort of mixes ender storage, buildcraft, forestry for the A-pierced pipe, and factorization. And to explain what's happening here is that the 2 ender chests have 2 different codes on them serving 2 different purposes. One of them is for all of the products from the alveoli. The other one is stocked absolutely to the brim with impregnated frames. You could use other frames like untreated frames or proven frames if you have a particularly great deal from the villages, because that's the only place you can get them from. And then the A-pierced pipe in the middle is shooting any necessary bees for the alveoli straight back up into the alveoli. The wooden pipe, of course, is just sucking things out as it normally does for the apiaries. And then in the apiarist pipe is then shooting all of the product materials into one of the ender chests. Always the same ender chest, that's kind of important. The routers are then pulling impregnated frames out of the ender chests and then shooting them into the frame housings. So, as a single frame in one of the housings burns out eventually, it is immediately replaced. So there's constantly 6 impregnated frames in there, as long as you can actually keep making impregnated frames. Which we then get into a bit later. Of course, to make the impregnated frames is fairly straightforward. This is one of my test examples, just when I was working out how you could use a carpenter and a centrifuge and a squeezer and whatnot. And there are bees that we can use to make the seed oil necessary for that, which I do get into in a little bit. But of course, on the far left here, we also see the 2 chests being handled by an applied energistics network, which of course we want to use because it's kind of awesome. This is more or less what the original bee location looks like now. I've since removed the marble and the ender chests and some stuff, but I haven't moved the apiarist chests yet because they have a fairly large storage, and they're a bit of a pain to shift because I can't move them with the gravity gun like I did a bunch of other chests. So I still have to figure out something for that, but I haven't really had much of a need to move all the princesses and whatnot from there just yet. Far left, you can also see the bee DNA tank that I was using for inoculations, which has been shifted. I made a pair of ender tanks, which have been somewhat of a bane of the existence on the server to a little bit, with regards to the lava and the nether, but I only just used it to shift what I had in those tanks, because you can't move those with the gravity gun either, which is a little bit of a pain. So just over here was the early kind of status of the bee lab as I was working on it. I had a book to the hub station. There's another book in there that goes here to the bee lab. I kind of need to make some kind of Nexus world, but that's a project for a later day, because at the moment this will suffice. Moved over a bunch of the chests because the Energistics network only has the 1 storage cell in it at the moment, and that got full very quickly. And then there's Nerfer there, who more or less just has the 2 recipes at the moment, one of which is for the alveoli blocks, and the other one is for the empty serum vials, which are used in the isolator. And just behind the title of the hub station book, you can just see Dexter there, chugging along, taking stuff from the ender chest and shoving it into the network. I kind of realized I could just use an import bus attached to the ender chest, much like how I actually deal with the main item delivery system inside all of the bee lab, but it was nice for Dexter to get out and stretch his legs a bit. He's usually just stored away in one of my ender pouches. So the main issue that I first had to solve was power, because the bee lab uses a lot of power. There's the centrifuges, there's the squeezers, there's the carpenters, and then there's all of the advanced machine, like the gene pool, which makes bee DNA, the inoculator, the purifier, the synthesizer, the isolator, all of this. It uses a lot of power. So I kind of figured that there wasn't really any way I was going to be able to reliably supply it with power from the power plant, otherwise known as Van Meert Power Station, which has yet to be constructed, but will be fun. So the bee lab kind of needs its own dedicated power supply, which, of course, at best needs to come from the bees. I mean, I can't just build a big power plant on the back of this. So I decided to go with the lava production that you can get via most of the nether bees, who produce simmering combs, which if you centrifuge you get phosphor, and if you mix 2 phosphor with a piece of sand in a squeezer, as I have on the bottom right here, you get 2 buckets of lava, which we then pump into magmatic engines or geothermal generators, and that produces power for you. So I also made a few, I think it was 3 redstone energy cells and some redstone energy conduits, which are sort of the upgraded version of the Buildcraft conductive pipes. There's also liquid oxide in this image, which shows sort of the upgraded version of the Buildcraft waterproof pipes. So overall, they're kind of a lot handier to have, and they have, to the best of my knowledge, no chance of exploding if you happen to forget to turn an engine off. So one of those cells is presently with Newton holding charge to the rolling machine that makes concrete, and one here is on Nerfer and one is on the squeezer. They move around quite a bit over the course of this. So once I had the power going, I was just using a backlog of phosphor at this point, so that becomes an issue in a moment. I set up a pulverizer, which is automatically making more sand to make more lava, and I also got the centrifuge, and a squeezer and a pair of carpenters, which I was using to mildly accelerate the production of scented panels, which you then use to make alvearies, which meant I had to switch between honey and seed oil, but eventually I did manage to get to work on that. So once I had that running, I just had to sort of automate it a little bit more, so I used Nerfer with the AE network to automatically shoot combs into a hopper going into the centrifuge, as well as shoot the necessary materials into the squeezer and into the carpenters. Fairly straightforward, not particularly innovative as far as I go. And while that was running, just going through all of the things that I had, I decided to start building out the area that describes where all of the alvearies go. That's 3 rows of 6 for a total of 18, sorry. And yes, I noticed that bottom left one is out of alignment. I did fix it. But yeah, you can just see that I've got a nice 3-block wide walkway between all of the alvearies, because they don't need to be very far apart, but they also don't need to be very close together because they're not directly networked together, which is very handy. And from there, I just took a little quick snapshot while I was working on things, and you can see the main line on the right there, which is still kind of incomplete because it requires a lot of clay. And I just started laying out a big concrete ceiling to everything, just so lightning didn't start setting things on fire, because I was using jungle wood planks, jungle wood slabs, which of course will burn. Which is also a mild problem with the alvearies, because the alvearies have to have a wooden slab layer to the top of them, which does burn, as I found out. But that didn't become a problem, because the alveary production is still kind of slow, because I haven't got the Industrious and the Imperial Bees into alvearies yet with their 6-frame housings. So I started off with these 7, and I was mostly just laying the 7 alveary blocks here to just see how things would progress, but that quickly became an issue, because over here I started with a pig here who came to science to move around the energy cell a bit so I could power an inoculator to make some super bees to produce phosphor, because I quickly began to run out of it, which became a bit of a significant issue because I still had a lot to do. So I super-refined some bees. I generated some actual new species. Fiendish has a 55% chance per cycle of creating an embittered comb, which is what you need to make phosphor. So I decided to try and breed that out, which took me a little bit of time, but then I had to superify it and purify it and whatnot. And then I ran into a slight issue, which is that there is sort of a baseline temperature and humidity that every bee species has, and it comes with the species. You can't select one from another species that you find better. Which, with the hell bees, the never bees, tends to be arid humidity and hellish temperature. And there are 3 humidities, which makes it fairly straightforward to make a bee that can live in any humidity, but there's 5 temperatures. And there's only one bee that has a temperature tolerance that's free in every direction. And that's the doctoral bee, which is a few species ahead of me at the moment. So I only have access to both 2. So I gave the bees for making phosphor both 2, and then they still need some more heat. In the meantime, I set up this little prototype to actually just get some embittered combs out of this thing, because running low on power very quickly. But once I actually got that, I set up the first alveary, and that was a fairly straightforward process, but then I had to start figuring out how to climate control the alveary such that the bees inside would actually work. And that's the handy thing about alvearies, is you can actually have full climate control on them. So there's the rain shield, there's the light, and there's the hydro regulator to change humidity. And notably for me, there is the heater, which you apply buildcraft power to, and it increases the temperature inside the aviary by about 20% or so. I didn't know at this particular moment exactly how warm it had to get, and it turns out to have been that with the both 2 for temperature tolerance on the super fiendish bees that I made, the temperature inside the aviary needs to be at 120 degrees, 120%. Hellish by itself is 200%, and the meadows biome that Monroeville consists of is 0. So that ultimately meant that I needed these 4 different heaters, which I then just started providing buildcraft power from an energy cell, kept hot swapping their cells around so that various things had power, because of course power is being generated over there with Nerfer and not over here with the actual alveary. But that meant that I was then finally managing to produce more phosphorus to actually produce more lava. So once that was done, I did a bit more work over at Nerfer. I got out the analyzer, just sort of messing about with a few more things, as I tend to do with bees. And I also started setting up a squeezer to make a carpenter make more impregnated sticks, which are used to make the impregnated frames. There wasn't any frame housings yet, but I then ran into a problem, which was I was running out of a bunch of vital materials. Specifically, I was very low on ferrous metal, or ferrous ore rather, which you can macerate or pulverize, I suppose, into nickel, which you can then combine with iron, sort of in a sort of like bronze, to make invar, which you need quite a bit of to make a magmatic engine. And I have been kind of shying away from showing my mining process and such on camera, just because I know that it's like the thing that basically every single Minecraft Let's Play of any kind has always had an absolute ton of. So I know it's like something that everyone's seen and everyone's going to be kind of bored of, so I kind of try to avoid showing mining on camera. But this is the way I've been doing mining recently. We have the mining world on Chaosville, which is dense ores. But it also has mining fatigue free, which makes standard mining a bit of a tricky thing, especially if you have to dig through a lot of space. But Xenos Reliquary has an item called the Destruction Catalyst, not to be confused with the Destruction Catalyst from Equivalent Exchange 2 during Tech-It. And we have a gas grinder at Resender Supply Depot, which gives us a fair bit of gunpowder and a fair few gas tiers, which I haven't really found much use for, but they are useful. They're useful mostly for things inside Xenos Reliquary, and I've been busy with other mods. But the Destruction Catalyst from Xenos Reliquary eats free gunpowder when you right-click a block, and uses it to detonate a 3x3x3 area, removing all of the mundane blocks, so dirt, stone, grass, gravel, sand, that kind of thing, but leaving untouched all of the ores. So it's basically a fantastic tool for reverse mining, which is an old concept I think the Minecraft Reddit knows about, which is just removing everything but the ores instead of removing only the ores. And because I have such a massive backlog of gunpowder, I can pretty much just run at the wall, right-clicking the Destruction Catalyst, and I can go for miles, uncovering a ton of resources in the process. And usually this is a dangerous thing, but inevitably in the Chaosville mining world I just run into an ore somewhere. There is lava above part of this tunnel, if I recall correctly. But that's just a quick aside of how I've been mining, because I thought you guys might like that. But once I got the infar, I made a total of, I believe it's 16 magmatic engines, and I started to make a more compartmentalized, more compact kind of power supply, which I kind of want to like surround in warded glass just to show it off a bit. So over here we have on the far right the alveary with its frame housings finally in place, producing our embedded combs. And they're all going into the same kind of produce chest that everything else is putting into, so the network is then shoving out the embedded combs into a centrifuge, which is then sending the phosphorus over to these squeezers, making more lava, pumping into a big tank, and that's then being pumped out by liquid ducts into the magmatic engines, which is then creating power. Straightforward, looks complicated. So I then just started upgrading that a little bit. I used some routers for factorization to start bulk processing the materials that go into the squeezers and the centrifuges. So there's one that pumps embedded combs into the centrifuges and one that pulls materials out of them, and then there's a router that shoves the phosphorus into the actual squeezer. I don't have any way yet to put the sand in there. I'm just gonna have occasionally chucking in a stack or two of sand into the squeezers, but not that big of an issue at the moment. Might be later, but I'm kind of struggling for a way to make it even without just completely overriding exactly how much sand is in there, such that you can't actually fit more phosphorus in. But then I started trying to tinker with it to figure out the best way to actually ensure that there is power to the engine, because if there's no power for the centrifuges or the squeezers or even the heaters in the alveoli, the engine basically completely shuts down. Because it can't process the embittered combs to make phosphor, it can't process the phosphor to make lava, and the temperature in the alveoli drops sufficiently that the bees in there can't actually work at all. So you need to have a battery in there. So I did this redstone energy cell in the bottom left here. Far left there is also, again, the processing chests for materials coming out and frames going in, and also I shifted around the impregnated frame setup. So with that, I then started working on the actual bee lab section. First thing I did then was I got my gravity gun out and I made a second ME network over here with a big long line of redstone energy conduits, which are kind of expensive because I don't have any automated way to make hardened glass. And I just started dropping the chests down by an import bus, which was shooting all of the serums that I have into the network. Straightforward, kind of fun. And I ended up with this, which is very handy, because normally, if you just had your serums in a chest, you would use the NAI search bar and you'd write out some part of the name that you remembered, and you'd double-click and it would highlight whatever was left. With an ME terminal, you just type in part of it and it automatically comes up. You don't have to worry about any of it. The only things that you can see are things that slightly match it. Only slight thing I don't like about it is that you can't search the subtext of the serum, so you can't search for ones of a specific quality or ones with a specific number of charges, which is a bit of a pain, but not that vital, and it's still very handy when you're actually just looking for something specific. And then I had to start working with the farmed bees, which are the bees that produce the seedy combs, which produce the seed drops, which give, I believe it's 4 impregnated sticks, which is basically half of an impregnated frame. Every single production, roughly, if you make them fast workers and give them tons of frames. But I only had one princess, which wasn't superified by my inoculator, and I had no drones, so I used one of the superified bees from the fiendish pieces inside of the alveoli making the lava, and changed the species of that, as well as superifying the farmed bee, which meant that I was running a little low on power. So I then had to modify the engine a little bit to make a priority system whereby there was an output energy cell and a actual main systems kind of energy cell, which is powering the actual systems inside the engine. Which it turns out, despite all my worrying, is actually fairly easy. You just turn down the maximum input of one of the energy cells and the energy just kind of divides by priority to them. So it's more the one that can take the most energy gets the most energy, basically. Works quite nicely. So once that was done, I started running out the redstone energy conduits to the rest of the machines, and everything started buzzing along quite nicely. No pun intended. And that's more or less where things ended as far as my recent PlayStation was, because I'm kind of sick again, so I've been kind of laid out for most of today. But I figured I'd try and get this done for you. I've recorded this audio twice now, because Sound Record decided to crash. But here's the entryway. Now bereft of ME network and machinery, more or less. I just got a few chests and the book to the hub station. And I kind of have a plan for this. There isn't much of an idea for it. It's meant to be more of a decorative thing, because the first thing you'll enter and see will be the warded glass that leads to the engine, and on the right of that, the warded glass showing the big area with the 18 alveolis. But I kind of want to add like a wall of ME storage monitors, showing the various primary outputs of the bees that are here, so like the things that the dedicated alveolis are putting out, so sort of like the redstone, for example, as well as dripping combs and whatnot. Just to show how much is there, I can add conversion matrices to those, so I can right-click them and grab a stack of them. And I'll probably have another ME terminal just sort of discreetly hidden away somewhere near it, so you can walk up and grab something more specific in a more specific volume. And that will probably have a dark ME cable connected to it, so that I can ensure that it's only active whenever there's someone actually around to use it. which is fairly important, even though we don't have much of a problem with power right now. But that's about the end of this video. Sorry it's mostly just static screenshots of me rambling. I am trying to get stuff done to improve things, and I will be keeping you all updated on how Elemental's going, probably on Twitter. I will post the information as it becomes available, so you don't need to keep asking me about it. I will just tell you. But that's it for now. I hope you've enjoyed this pseudo time lapse of things going on at the Bee Lab, and I shall catch you all next time. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and or a favourite, follow me on Twitter, and subscribe to be notified of future updates. You can also check out the website where most other content is uploaded. That's all for now, catch you later.